Hello and welcome to this month's Let's Play session for Writing for Games. Today we'll be playing Sunless Sea by Fail Better Games. Some of you may know this as the kind of aquatic roguelike game by the creators of Fallen London, set in that world. No one's joined me in the live stream at this point, and I don't actually seem to have any live viewers at the moment. But that's okay. This may just be one for the archives. Let's go ahead and make sure that the Q&A app is open. Okay, I think Q&A is enabled. And let's dive right in. So this is a game of Sunless Sea. And I have already started playing Sunless Sea. But, oh, hello, Anne.
Hi.
I was just about to go ahead and get started. Wasn't sure if anyone was going to be joining me live. So, before I actually get into the game then, so we're live now, recording for the YouTube archives. Anything you wanted to ask me about or talk about? Any particular concerns? Because, you know, general class stuff is a higher priority than the Let's Play video.
Yeah, I do have some questions for you. Last week's class, you know, the thing, I think I was a little bit confused on it.
Uh-huh.
And I'm not sure. I was going to ask you about, I don't think I'm going to be ready to go to the next class. And I was going to ask you if you would give me an incomplete and let me, you know, repeat it after this, you know, to really get it.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you want, you can take a, you can talk to your advisor about withdrawing at any point, and then, you know, withdraw and then return.
See, I don't want to withdraw because I wanted to be able to, you know, to be able to learn of it, but I don't think I'm ready to go to the next class.
Okay, so let me make sure the so your goal then is
if all right, they will if I make anything below a C, I'm in trouble.
okay. Well, there is no FULSA does not offer incomplete grades. What you can do is you can either you can, if you right now you're enrolled to take the class, and is your primary concern then grades, or is your primary concern being ready to move on to the next class in the program, or is your primary concern understanding the material in this class? I'm trying to figure out where is.
I'm not sure I really understand it. I know it's still early in the thing, but you know, I'm still not sure that I understand it. And I really can't afford to fail, you know, another class, you know.
Okay. Well, I'll try to get you some clear feedback tomorrow on kind of where you stand so far, and I cannot give you advice directly on what you should do about your kind of academic progress, but I can give you information about how you're doing with the class and what you would need to do to succeed in the class. Because you can either pass the class, basically, either you're doing well in the class, you get whatever grade you get. Or if you're not doing well, your options are pretty much, you have two options. One, if you find yourself that just not doing well in the class, it's basically comes down to you can take a leave of absence and come back and try again. And the other option is that if you fail a class, you can receive grade forgiveness and retake a class, but that can be a problem if you've already done that for previous classes, or potentially if your overall GPA was below a certain threshold. Now, all the details of those options you need to talk to your advisor about, because I don't manage any of that. I just am here for the academics. That's one of those. The administrative aspects, I basically, I try to make sure that I've got the basic information correct, so I never mislead someone. But I just have to direct you on to someone else, usually your advisor, with specific questions. So what I can do is get back to you tomorrow with kind of the most current information on where you stand in the course so far. And what that means in terms of what you would need to do to be successful in the class. I can't say, I think you will be a success or I think you won't, but I can give you feedback on work and help you with the numbers in terms of that, like what kind of, percentage of the course is still outstanding, stuff you haven't even touched yet. I do every month I have people in the class who are not gamers, for whom video games are either a small or a completely not a part of their lives. Most of whom have played some sort of video game, Facebook game, an old school arcade game like Frogger or Missile Command back in the day. Occasionally people who really literally have never played a video game at all. And I think that my overall history is that I've done a good job of being able to make the material accessible to them, and I'm happy to offer extra help in terms of that. It might even be possible, once I take a closer look. I do not generally offer opportunities to resubmit work, but I can extend every student a little bit of slack. I can't extend a whole lot of slack to any one person. But, without being unfair to the rest of the class, if you got off on the wrong footing, I can help a little bit with that.
One thing I did enjoy was reading that, the dragon.
Yes. Choice of Dragons.
I loved that, and it was like I tried, as I was putting the thing with Cindy, I tried to put that together, and I think I was getting out the wrong way, but it's like, okay, how do I tell it?
Right.
But that was a perfect example.
Good.
That really helped me. It was like, but it's just putting it into words, and then I realized on some of your notes this week, it's only supposed to be one character, that I built on. And it's like, oops.
Well, and this class is structured to be kind of progressive, meaning that the requirements and limitations are more lax the first week. and then become more stringent and specific as we go along. So you've got a fair amount of wiggle room with that first twine assignment, the one from week 1.
Yeah.
The mini game design document this week is pretty specific, but it also like tells you really clearly what each specific thing is supposed to be. And then in week 3, the second twine assignment on branching dialogue, the rules are stricter, and while they're all explicit and clear, it doesn't kind of tell you, remember to follow this rule at this point. So I'll get back to you with kind of some guidance and kind of a status update about where you are so far tomorrow.
Okay, talking about that on the twine thing, I know I lost my project right there. It was almost at the deadline. And I mean, it was like, oh, I know I didn't get the 20, you know, I was pushing it right to the line.
Right.
And it was like, because I had gotten locked out on a course before, you know, by 2 minutes, you know. And it's like, okay, I figured, okay, it's better to hand in 10 and than not hand it in at all, you know, because,
right.
And I forgot what you had said is go back and save as I was going along. I got to go in and just forgot to save.
Right. So, hold on, let me take a closer look at this because I want to refresh my own memory. Okay, just pulling up. Right.
Because when I finally got to what I thought you were asking for, it was like, whoops, you know, and I forgot to save, and it was almost 11:45, and it's like,
right.
I know one of my professors had told me if it ever does that again, always send it to you and let them know the time.
Yeah, that's the best thing you can do if you're having problems coming out down to the wire is to that.
It's always email it to you and let you know that what time it was.
Right. Let's see. Trying to take a quick look here.
But I am very interested in learning more on the gaming. You know, it was just like it intrigued me as I was reading. It really intrigued me. It's like I wanted to really try to grasp it.
Well, that's good. That is what. I mean, I hope to. I hope that people will become curious, you know, become intrigued in the course of learning about this stuff. I want, you know, I don't expect people to decide that writing for games is the thing they want to do and shift all their focus to it. But I want people to find something to see if they can find something that grabs their interest, that they want to learn more about. That's my goal.
because I know right now one of my struggles is writing everything in active present tense. I'm used to writing it, like a novel, but when it comes to present active tense, it's like I it's hard for me to adjust, but I try.
Right, right.
I have to really think hard as I'm writing.
Because yeah, it's not.
I told you not to push on that thing. You probably need to take that other ability too. That's what that's coming off that page. It's a secret admirer note. It will stop something about you. Hope you wrote a good one.
I'm going to have to. Hi, Millie. I'm going to have to look at this some more because I'm actually having a problem with the Twine file that you submitted right now.
Okay.
But I'll do what I can to get to the bottom of this.
Okay. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
You fish those down, you reach back in and get those.
So.
Two wooden boards went down.
Okay. Going to grab your headphones. Got it. So, did you have Anne? Did you have any particular questions beyond that? Anything about this week's work?
No, not really. I know I got a lot of setting to do tonight in the next couple of nights because my vision was been blurry. I did just before going on here. I did finally submit the last night's thing, and looking at theirs, I think I did what everybody else was doing.
Okay.
No, you don't have to move all that. It's down the other way of the window, Rich. You're right down that way. You don't have to move all
But
that.
I wanted to tell the story of Cindy, like in the game. I think it would be fun to tell her.
Yeah. Yes, very much so.
And some of the, funny things she did, she was handicapped, but, she, did funny things,
Well, right. Oh, I mean, this is part of telling larger, broader stories about people who are not the most stereotypical protagonists. Is that they're people. They're not one note. That a character with a disability is not someone who needs to be rescued from their disability. That they are a person who, among other things, is capable of being funny some of the time, and that in some cases the story may revolve around their ability and health issues, and in some cases the disability may be a factor in their story, but the story might be actually about pursuing something else. And that's good storytelling. Is not characters who fall outside of the most typical norm of the active, able-bodied, and most commonly historically white and male protagonist. Not making them be just about their identity. Their identity is important to who they are, but they have a story to tell that is not limited to they're the character who has this issue.
Yeah.
The character who is from this background. They are a person for whom that's part of their life.
And one of the things that, I wanted to try to bring across was, like, she couldn't talk, but she had a lot of love to give, and she really touched a lot of hearts, like her doctor's hearts. And my husband and I were thinking about, like, maybe putting a game where they have to do good deeds, to meet her, to help her move along is use good deeds for her.
That fits the kind of feel of the story very well, I think. So, Melanie, did you have any questions? Anything you wanted to to ask about, because this session is first and foremost kind of an informatory session.
No, actually, I just got your email about uploading the file from Sunday, and I
Okay.
don't think that I had compressed it correctly, so I
Okay.
just did it. I'm gonna try to upload it and see if that works.
Okay. Well, as I said to Anne, you know, I can offer everyone a little bit of slack. I can't, you know, keep offering it the same person Slack over and over, but you can use your Slack for this.
Also, I don't know if you got my email about, because I started with a different cohort. I wasn't,
Oh, right, about the portfolio, right?
Right. Like I think I have some of the things for the portfolio, but not others. So I was wondering if you just wanted, like, what I do have, or like what should I do about that?
Send in what you do have, and basically, I spoke to. I thought I posted. Check for FSO when you have a chance, because I thought I posted a reply to you on FSO about this. And if you don't have a message from me, then let me know. But either way, I'll go ahead and, you know, whether you hadn't seen it or whether it actually didn't get posted properly. Basically, for the portfolio classes, I spoke to portfolio instructors, and what they're focusing on is helping students put together a online portfolio of the students, in their estimation, is a diverse range of their best work. So you do not need to have every single thing from a specific list. You want to have as much of your coursework so far as possible, and then you can figure out which things you are going to do some revision, make some revisions to, polish, and put out there to show off your writing chops. That's the goal.
Okay. So, but like, how would that work for me towards graduation? Like, do I need to go ahead and make up what I don't have from this like list, or like would they just
you'd be able to use things that you do have, as long as you basically generally have your coursework from the classes. You'll be able to use assignments that you feel are appropriate and that they approve.
Okay.
Instead of other assignments some other people make.
Okay.
So yeah. So you should not. It's not impossible. You might decide you want to go and do something that some other people did, but you really shouldn't have to. What you should be looking at is, from your work in the program, what can you use essentially to show off your chops, and they will help guide you somewhat with that.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, no sense in, you know, reinventing this wheel isn't quite the right word for that, but, you know, yeah.
Definitely. Go back to start.
Yeah, you do not have to go back to start. So, okay, I see we have a viewer. Let me go ahead and check. I've got the watch page where people can watch outside the live stream up, just to see if anyone's posted a question or anything on there. Okay, no. Okay. So, either of you have more questions at this point, or shall we take a look at the way? Okay. My plan is to then take a little look, not too long, at the way story is presented in this unusual game called Sunless Sea. Okay. Here we go. I'm going to go ahead and start the screen share, which means everything's going to get. Have a question. Okay, that was just never mind. That was just you from earlier.
Oh yeah, sorry.
It's all right. Start the screen share. It's all going to look funny for just a moment. Then I'm going to pull up the other window. So this is Sunless Sea. I have in progress, which to make things as easy and clear as possible for everyone. I'm going to go ahead and launch my boat here. I'm in rather desperate straits. Low on rations and almost entirely out of fuel. But I think we got the solution to that right here. It's stranded. And a pirate's about to fire upon us, perhaps. And we're sunk. Not going to explain too much about what just happened here, because the goal is to get back to the start of a new game. But you see the way this game, the game opens up a book, kind of journal, that tells story aspects as you go along. And my first ship captain has passed beneath the waves. Hold on, let me go ahead and pull. I'm going to go ahead and, for the quality of the recording's sake, I'm going to head and mute everyone else in the chat, because we're getting some background noise here.
Okay.
Yep, I'm picking up. Okay, I'm picking up Anne's microphone. So I'm going to go ahead and mute your microphone for.
Are you talking? Because I can't hear you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay, now I'm unmuted. And we're just going to accept the legacy. This is, every time you lose a sea captain, you can extend a legacy to your next character. But here's the way the game starts. It starts with this book open in front of you and this hints of a world behind you. And it says, Captain's Making. 3 decades ago, in the reign of Victoria, London was stolen by bats. Now it lies a mile beneath the surface. That's right, London fell through the ground into an underwater ocean, a subterranean ocean. That's the world of this story. It was dreadfully inconvenient for everyone. It opened a vast black ocean to you. Welcome to the Untersea. Now, choose a past, or go ahead and be a mysterious person. Let's go ahead and take a look at what this game allows us to choose as options for a past. Who were you? A street urchin, a poet, a veteran of the campaign of '68, an ordained priest, or a natural philosopher? Let's be a street urchin. Low cunning on the high seas. And gives us a crew member, some skills, some money. What does winning mean to you? This is where you choose the character's long-term goal, such as your father was lost at sea. You can find and return his remains to London. Write stories or acquire wealth. Well, let's see. We were an urchin. You know what? Wealth seems like a reasonable goal. And you have the option of changing to certain other goals as you play through the game. A last scrap of paperwork. Captain, an irregularity at the harbor master's office. They wish to know, what term of address do you prefer ashore? this is a very nice narrative touch. This will determine what people call your captain, but your captain's gender is up to you. So the entire game says, you know what? Whatever your captain's gender is, that's personal. That's up to you. But you can choose to have the game refer to you as Madam, Sir, Citizen, My Lord, My Lady, or Captain. Captain will do. That is a story touch within the gameplay that has no real game consequences, but has the important effect from a storytelling perspective of allowing the player to situate themselves comfortably in the world. That's good. Vice Explore. You can pick a character image for our vagabond.
Pipe smoking dude.
Pipe smoking dude? This one or this one?
Oh, the first one.
Okay.
He seems more like a captain.
Okay. Let's see. Let's call him Cummerbund. Wait, that's Bummer. Is it spelled bunt like bunt cake? Well, it is now. And here we have what our options are in London, including reading through some basic advice for new players. This is a very, very good idea when you're starting to play the game, but since I'm a little bit more familiar, I'm just going to skip over this and sell the book. There we go. And you can go to your lodgings in London, out on the town itself with its many, many options. And I think the Labyrinth of Tigers, let's see, is open under the patronage of the London Zoological Society to cautious visitors for educational purposes. You may see the devil apes of far Mandalay, the thing in the mirror, the Cantigaster's children, the gargantuan cave snake, the inhabitor of wolves, the hybrid fiend. NB, the management recommends you arrange your exit well before closing time. But though a menagerie of monstrous creatures from beneath the earth could be interesting, right now we can't actually do things. One requires a bucket of harlot fry, that's actually a sea serpent spawn, and the other requires a whole lot of echoes. Echoes are money, so let's go perhaps not. London. One of the most... Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I just wondered, like, where do you find the balance for the amount of content that you provide for the game? Like, because I've never, like, done any writing for games, but I've played a few. And as a writer, I'm wondering, how do you know if it's, like, too much or not enough information for the player?
That's a very good question. And the answer varies. There are a lot of gamers whose response to anything more than about a sentence of text is TLDR, you know, too long, didn't read. There are also gamers who really get into world and backstory and are always looking for more lore about a world. When it comes, you have to think about it in terms of two different things. You have to think about who the audience for the particular game is, and you also have to think about the division between necessary text, things the player has to read or engage with to continue, and optional texts, which are kind of a chance to present a deeper view of the world or more advanced tutorials on how to play the game. And whenever things start to get lengthy, you want to keep it as optional as possible. Now this game And part of why I like this game is that it grew out of Fallen London. Fallen London is a very popular browser-based text game, a bit like the Choice of games mentioned in week 1, Choice of the Dragon and Choice of Broadsides. So the core audience for this game is willing to do more reading than many games and genres allow for. And you see that in that there are two primary views. There's the top-down view of your ship and the environment surrounding it. And as soon as you open up to do anything other than move the ship about, it is literally a book. A book is what you do all your other actions in. Looking at the hold of your ship, taking kind of a glance at your crew, going to buy or sell goods. The creators of Sunless Sea knew that they could get away with having a relatively text-dense game. Even so, the game is structured to present varying levels of requirement when it comes to that text. Like here, we visit the Admiralty's Surrey office. Well, okay. If you've read the tutorial book that I just sold, you'll know already from that alone that one of the basic ways to get about in this game, to get on, is by bringing back reports from other places to the Admiralty's office. That often that can be more valuable than cargo you might be able to pick up. That this game is more oriented around information and mystery than around transportation and commerce. So, in case you didn't read that,
genre, then you have to really be cognizant of the audience that you're targeting.
Yeah, audience is everything. If you've got a game that's a first-person shooter with rare exceptions, your world building needs to come all through the three-dimensional environment. You do not get to put much spoken dialogue in front of the player, and you generally do not get to make them read much of anything. Now, this depends in part on how you define, how you really understand your audience. When I said first-person shooter, I'm referring to games where the game is from a first-person 3D perspective, uses shooting as a primary game mechanic, and really the focus is on tense gun battles. Classic story-driven game BioShock is a first-person 3D game, and you do shoot and get shot at by other people, but it's a much more atmospheric game, and they put a whole lot of story into it in a very deliberate way. Radio communications you receive and audio logs you recover as you wander that play while you're still exploring, finding new things, scaring yourself terribly, and occasionally engaging in running gun battles. You might want to go back and replay that audio log you were listening to that has a secret about Rapture, the City Beneath the Sea, if you get caught up in a major gunfight or use of your self-mutated powers during while I was playing. But there, knowing that they were working on a story that would appeal to an audience that in some cases wouldn't normally buy a game that is a first-person. Well, okay. Not every first-person game is driven primarily by fast-paced action. But BioShock is a game that looks at times like it might be primarily a first-person shooter, when it in some ways is as much akin to an old adventure game, games that tended to have more text and more narrative in them, as it is to a first-person shooter. It was also kind of a masterwork of design, because it was very much the design was there from day one, as opposed to with some games and some of the work that can be found in games writing, where a game is largely created in terms of its gameplay, and there's a very loose notion of what the story should be, and then sometimes a writer gets called in when the game is half or more complete to write in the narrative bits.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's one of the challenges in game writing, is like, okay, so I have to write the story, and you want me to use story to make sense of these gaps in the consistency of the world, but you can't do anything for me because you don't have the resources to recreate any of the 3D models or much of them to suit what might be good storytelling. You know, that's kind of a worst-case scenario, but it's a realistic one. So here in this relatively text-driven game, let's get on to some of the bits about how the story can interact with the gameplay. An attempt to earn a little pay. Let's take a passenger who wants to go to the tomb colonies. Interesting, but barely relevant to gameplay, highly relevant to the feel of the game. We get some text here explaining how something about the otherworldly quality of fallen London. People don't tend to die. They do, however, kind of slowly decay. And so we've got someone here who's not in the greatest shape anymore and wants to go to the tomb colonies to at least, well, rest in relative peace. That should alone give you an idea of the kind of gothic, kind of vague, kind of supernatural in a vaguely, creepy rather than shock value way, the feel of the game. And we could go to the docks for a night on the town, but we don't have the free time for it. These are the things you have to do a thing. We have the money. We have or do not have certain story elements that would allow or permit that. But you have to come back to port after being at sea for a while to have another day, a free evening. We don't have the free evenings to speak. We need to get to work. So let's close this up. And start the engines. Oops, I accidentally redocked right there. It should this may be a bit jerky because of the strain of running Google Hangout at the same time as the game. Thankfully, for all that the game is partially randomized every time you play, the general location of things stays about the same, so I know which general direction I need to go to drop off our little our passenger here. As your prow lamp, which you can turn off, that can be important sometimes if someone's trying to shoot you, illuminates new regions of new islands and new regions of the undersea, or Untersee. You acquire knowledge. That's recorded over here as acquiring fragments. Oh, and here the game has stopped us for a moment just to let us know. If you ever need an extra burst of speed, clicking the full power button will add another barrel to fuel the engines. This is occasionally hazardous. Basically, you can goose the engines with a chance they'll explode on you. Now, what's that? Ooh, that's a pirate. Oh, they just shot us. They return fire. Missed. Note the relatively slow pace here of combat. This is not a game that is depending on satisfying people's kind of twitchy, trigger-happy urges. Instead, trying to give the player something of the feel of, okay, prep, try to line up the shot, delay, delay. Oh, the cannon's loaded. We have a firing solution. Fire of pre-modern, of up through well, certainly past the age of sail, but until we reach our modern era of fighter planes. What's the word I'm looking for? All the way through the age of the dreadnoughts, the great cannon-bearing sailing ships being the primary vessels of war. You can encounter unfriendly creatures like giant glowing crabs, as well as pirate ships of varying degrees of ferocity. And here it says destroyed a pirate steam pinnace. Ship is yours. What do we do with her? And loot and scuttle is our option. The ship apparently is not seaworthy enough to be worth trying to tow to port. But we can take whatever we find. Lean pickings. We now have a cache of curiosities. Rather abstract cargo. Wonder if we can actually do something with that. Yes. Okay. And found some fuel inside, and in the process lost. I suppose there are circumstances in which you might keep an unknown crate. So let's close this up here and get back underway.
Should you like repair your boat or something?
Carry a boat?
Repair your boat?
Yes, you can. In fact, I can attempt to repair my boat at sea. Doing so right now. But it's using precious supplies as I do so. And now suddenly, I'm low on supplies. I can get more, but you see up here, there's my fuel and my supplies. Supplies are important both for things like repairing my ship and for feeding my crew. So the game, this is not the kind of game where you go back to town, fill up to full on hit points, grab 30 dozen healing potions, and head back out. It's at least tries to be a game about scarcity. I haven't played far enough. Doc, there we go. At least tries to be a game where you will have to make difficult decisions on a regular basis. And many of the decisions can have dark consequences. If you run out of food and you are far from port, you may actually have to make that old sailing decision of whether or not to eat the people who are dying of hunger on your ship. Haven't had that happen yet, thankfully. But I did in that previous game. I was running so short of fuel and supplies that I had to sell my boat and buy a little tiny runabout that could barely carry any cargo just to continue. And then I found that I could hardly carry enough fuel to get to the destination that I needed to go to. This game borrows certain elements from a genre that is sometimes known as roguelike. Roguelike games have a couple traits in common. They tend to be focused on adventure, often very focused on combat. The traditional roguelike game is a dungeon exploration game. But with a couple key features, one being a significant element of randomness, a high degree of difficulty, often forcing the player to deal with the kind of details that other games don't. The original Rogue, where the genre began, is a game where you literally can starve to death as you're exploring a dungeon. So you have to eat food, and if you run out of safe rations, you have to try and decide which of the things you've found is worth trying to put in your mouth. Yeah. And another feature of roguelike games tends to be permadeath, meaning you, in many of these games, cannot save. This game allows you to play in a quote-unquote hardcore mode or to open up saving at will, but you lose your little Oh, I have to answer this question before I continue. But you lose your little kind of badge of honor for playing in hardcore mode if you decide to save manually. And it is expected that your characters will die, and you'll have to start and tell new stories. Many rogue-like games have very little story for this very reason. The original Rogue, a game that dates back to the early days of computing and used only ASCII art, the hero of Rogue was an ampersand, that little @ sign you use in your emails. But Sunless Sea attempts to offer a kind of non-linear storytelling game by interrupting the kind of survival gameplay of trying to be a sea captain on a lightless, terror-filled ocean underneath the earth with these story moments, and with the fact that many of these story moments where you have to choose consequences, make decisions, will not be one shot but have further consequences later on in the game. So right here, we've reached the Tomb City, and we've brought our passenger to it. And we have two options: help out an immigrant or make no promise. Your tomb colonist yanks off her bandages. She looks remarkably healthy for a tomb colonist. I'm not as dead as I look, she confesses, and I won't get ashore without your help. Yes, the constables are looking for me back home. Is that a problem? Or you can help her, because she is basically on the run from the law and pretending to be decrepit and looking for a place to rest. Or you can make no promise of discretion, keep your nose clean, you'll drop her off at the dock as promised, but after that, it's her problem. Let's try helping her out. You slip your furtive passenger past the skin check post and the confirmation of consolation. Thanks, Captain, she remarks casually. Let me teach you a couple of tricks, just in case you do this again, and here's a little hush money. So, we have now have one menace suspicion. That's a bad thing. That means we are that much more noticeable to the legal authorities of this world. We no longer have a tomb colonist on our ship because, well, we got her on shore. She paid us, and paid us well. That's 200 echoes, which is more than I ever amassed in the last game I played. You brought a criminal to Venderblight and assisted her. This is a little factual statement, and it says here, when you hover over it, just what precisely is their problem? And so this is something that can come back to haunt us. Who knows what the further consequences of having helped this woman evade the law will be. And we've also gained 1x Veils. Veils is a skill. These are the skills up here, which means we're now a little bit better at trickery. Now that we're here, we can explore the city. Let's see, what does this say? A beefy tomb colonist bustles up. A gray mustache pokes impertinently out from under his bandages. Come on in, then. And here's what, the Vengeance of Jonah. Here's where I guess we wound up getting lunch. Oh boy. It's a cramped little place, but much better lit than most places in the tomb colonies. The scents of the dishes are multitudinous and extraordinary. Are they good? They might be. They might be good. It's difficult to tell. And here we have a chance to recruit the soup chef. That's the poissonnier. The bandaged poissonnier has long wished to travel, needing to outfit the galley to his exacting standards. So we have a chance to recruit a cook. Right now we have a gunner and our ship's captain, and 8 general crew members who help keep the ship running. Let's see. Ooh. Yeah, it costs 300 echoes to recruit him. That's virtually all of our 310 echoes. That seems too risky to me. And it looks like we can't do either of the other things. We don't have strange catch to sell to the this disturbing restaurant, and we can't actually try the food there because we're not scared enough. Terror is something that tends to go up over the course of the game, and if it gets out of control, can cause your crew to go mad, etc. We just started, so we have a very low terror score, meaning that right now our character isn't terrified enough to be willing to try the somewhat disturbing soup at the vengeance of Jonah. So let's go back to Vendor Blight, gather some gossip, and now we have a port report which we can take back to the Admiralty. Anything in the shops? Fuel and supplies, those are both at above the prices in London itself. A place called the Hollow Temple will buy certain kinds of information. And here's where, if you have a garden variety tomb colonist, you can sell them, drop them off, and collect your wages. Let's ply the sea again. I'm going to stop pretty soon here. I just wanted to give you a little taste, hopefully maybe get just far enough to see some action we've taken have consequences, but we are running out of time. It's coming up on 11. Here we have pass between Hornman's Stag and Tanak Chuk. You know, what appeals to players varies, of course, varies wildly. I probably should have bought more supplies, come to think of it. I was forgetting the fact that we had plenty of fuel. We used most of our supplies to repair the ship. Well, let's see if we can get back to Fallen London without eating each other.
What's the one with the little skull underneath the knife and flare?
This is our terror level.
Oh.
Terror 4. Terror 4 is very low. Your crew needs provisions. Yes, they are hungry. But there's Hunter's Keep, which means we're close to Fallen London. There we go. There are the docks. And for all that this game is intentionally slow-paced, if you do come running up to the docks too fast, you can crash into them and do damage to your ship. Happened to me the very first time I tried to dock.
Is this a game that you're playing online, or is it a game that you like?
Okay, that's a good question. This game takes place offline, but with an online update. Basically, unlike Fallen London, the kind of game that inspired it, you do not have to be online at all times, and at least in the current version of it, you are not playing with a bunch of other human players. It's not an MMO. That'd be massively multiplayer online game. MMOs are usually MMORPGs, the RPG being role-playing game. It's actually a single-player offline game. But as long as you register and connect to a Fallen London account, not only will the game be updated, that's pretty common these days. Most games will look to see if there's a patch online for them. But also, they regularly add more stories. Stories are, of course, the text portion of the game. That gives you an idea about just how important that is to the people who designed the game. They got this whole game engine built so they could continue to populate it with more stories. And here, now we're back in London, we have a port challenge. The revenue men come looking for contraband. We have nothing to hide, so we can let them do their worst. Or declare the goods we have, which we also have nothing. So these are kind of identical for us right now. But let's go ahead and let them search the ship. They roam your deck like wolves. They tear through your belongings like termites. At last they leave. Menace's suspicion hasn't changed because it's lower than 5. Our suspicion level went up when we smuggled the tomb colonist who wasn't decrepit into Vendor Blight, but it went up from 0 to 1, so we're hardly, wanted criminals at this point. And then takes us back to London. There are messages we can click from the Harbor Master, and suddenly we have all these options over here, including things that we had before. Our crew is still hungry. We're in London. We can go to our lodgings. We can go back to that creepy menagerie. We also have a couple who want to talk to us. A merchant who wants some exotic goods and will pay well for them if we come across, let's say, nearly 7 zoop. Or 7 mutter salt. Those are exotic but legal goods. And here we have someone a little bit less reputable offering us a gift. A dray piled high with fuel and supplies. A very fine evening to you, Captain. My what you might call mentor is very fond of adventurous sea captains, and he would like to offer you what you might call a dispensation, on account that he is so fond of sea captains. Behind the blind bruiser on the dock stands a dray piled high with fuel and supplies. You can accept the dispensation, which is going to take up 15 spaces worth of cargo and is mostly going to be fuel and supplies, which if you haven't haven't had any really good dealings like we did with getting 200 echoes from our one passenger, can be life or death. You can ask further, or you can refuse. Let's ask further. He waves a fine and liberal. He runs. Oh, an airy wave. He runs a very fine and very liberal establishment just across the river that is much patronized by sailors, by men of wit and vinegar. A public house, and there is no obligation to speak of. My patron would only hope that you might remember him kindly, and I suppose that if the opportunity should arise for you to return his kindness, then I do not imagine that he would refuse your offer. So, translate that, right? We're about to get into organized crime. Let's do it. You accept the proposal. Our suspicion goes up by 1. We've gained 10 fuel and 5 supplies. And now we owe some mysterious crime lord a favor. These are the kinds of choices you get in this game. I'm going to do one more thing while we're here. We can actually go out for a night on the town. Carouse reduces terror, run into trouble, or romance. Ooh. Let's see. Good night out. Sea shanties, good companion from the warmth of a pub fire. We gained some recent news. We spent our free evening. We spent 30 echoes. We had a luck roll, and we were fortunate. We've lost 5 terror, so now we actually are all the way down to 0. We're serene. Wow. And apparently we didn't actually meet anyone. The last time I did that, I met someone. The game gave me the choice of whether that special someone was male or female, not assuming anything about the player or the protagonist. And then you got a chance to either keep their locket or toss it into the sea like a callous cad. And so here we have some new recruits. Who's looking to take ship? The irrepressible cannoneer. Looking for a gunner? We already have a gunner. The sigil-ridden navigator. Let me guide your ship. I know all the Z. How it was, how it will be. Please, the headaches only stop when I'm working. Poor soul, let's take him on board. You can't possibly be crazy and try to kill us, right?
No.
So, has that tattoo grown since you last looked? Oh boy, so let's, where's our, but we now have a first officer, and we can talk to him. Yes, now is good, thank you. And invite him to dinner. That's going to take some supplies. We have some supplies now. And I am not going to get into all this text. Suffice it to say that this is a good example here of how this is a game for readers, because if you just skip over this text here, all you've got is you've lost 1 supplies and your navigator's sigil has devoured his memories. He cannot recall his past. That's the too long didn't read version of this. I presume there is more here. How do you come by the sigil? He doesn't know. So he's got a story, and that story could potentially lead to something good or something possibly absolutely terrible for you and your ship. And here's the sigil-ridden navigator again in our journal. If you forget, like, what was it I was doing with him? It says, your navigator's sigil has devoured his memories. He cannot recall his past. Each day his pain is a little worse. But that longish account of the dinner with the navigator, that's gone. There might actually be a wiki somewhere that you can actually get all that information in if you didn't read it the first time. And so it'd be time to set sail again. Let's go full steam. This is putting on a power into the engines that might cause them to burst. You can send out your bats to find out where the nearest... oh yes, here's an abandoned ship. And you can check your gazetteer, which is, of course, just what's available of your journal. And you can pull up a map of what you've explored of the Untersea. Conveniently enough, there's a nice frame on here to give you an idea of about what shape the world is, how large, and where you are to begin with. You might consider that to be a fair approximation of what you actually know about the world. That is to say, presumably there's nothing much to see over here, and if you go, and no one's ever really gotten past here, perhaps. I'm going to go ahead and stop. Oops, I just did it again. That was a temporary effect. The salt lions. You can find these strange and amazing things in the sea. Some of which you can interact with, some of which you can't. Some of which may be sources of information, or you may have quests to later. I'm going to go ahead and quit out now. It'll save my game automatically. I'm going to stop screen sharing. We have more people here now. So that's it for our little expedition to the Untersee, or Undersea, of Sunless Sea. Anyone have questions either about that or about the class? And I'm going to go ahead and okay, I think you're muted on your end. You may have to click the mute button if you want to talk.
Okay.
There we go. Now this is, got a few minutes here to either take any questions people have about the Let's Play. Chris, Lacey, if either of you have things you want to ask about, like about the class as well as Sunless Sea, now is the time. If anyone has any feedback or other concerns, let me know.
I did have a question about the...
I was wondering if you wouldn't mind talking about
that.
Yeah, I think my connection is slow.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Lacey, go ahead.
I had a question about the game design document, and I was just wondering if you could just talk about that assignment a little bit. Sometimes that helps me to understand what you're looking for.
Okay. The game design document it's a multi-purpose assignment. Among other things, it's intended to get you thinking about not only, and for some of you this may be the least developed part of it, what a game concept you could work on further might be like, but also on a very practical level to get you all thinking about audience a bit more. When you're writing a screenplay or teleplay, you know your audience. Your audience is, on one hand, theoretically, ultimately, people who would watch the produced movie or television show. It's also more immediately the people who would be reading the script and try and determine if the next person up the ladder is going to read it and eventually make a decision about producing it. Now, games writing, you have a number of different audiences you need to be addressing and switching between. This is an important part of the game design document, and it's something that's a very valuable skill to have as a writer. It helps your marketability, not just as a game writer, but as a writer in the broadest sense possible, to be able to quickly identify your audience, to make judgments about what their needs and interests are, and to appeal to them. So, in the game design document, there are a few specific places where you are called to write for the player. And that's basically writing that as it may appear actually in the game. These may be some of the most engaging parts of the GDD for you, but it is often more important in other sections that you're writing clearly for other people on the development team, doing what is basically technical writing. And certain parts of the GDD are the kinds of things that are likely to be written not only by those who are working on the project with you, but by higher-ups. So clarity and brevity about what the game does and how to find an audience is really important there. The one sheet above everything else is the kind of thing that is not so much a pitch document, not like you walk in with a one sheet and say, I'd like to make this game, but is really important in terms of this is what everyone agrees and everyone working on the game is united about. This is what the game will do. This is how the game will sell. And hopefully the people who hold the purse strings think that sounds wonderful. Because if they don't, things are going to have to change. This is true in Hollywood. It's immensely true in Hollywood. But it's something that writers in Hollywood often don't have to worry about as directly. They just have to worry about writing a script that someone else wants to try and produce, and then the producers and the directors and all of the people in casting and set building and all of that, costuming, they all have to kind of negotiate the logistics of getting it made. The roles are more permeable and fluid in game writing. So you have to write in the game design document for people who are peers on the team. You have to write for players of the game. You sometimes have to write specifically for elements of a game design team, as when you're called to write descriptions for a game's art team. That is completely different from writing for a programmer. And I am not expecting you, because this is your only assignment on this topic, to have a mastery of the interests and effective appeals to these audiences. I expect, though, you to make an effort to write in a way that's appropriate for those different audiences, and to have it all gel into a complete and coherent picture about what a game concept might be. That concept does not have to be revolutionary. It can be drawn from or a direct adaptation of another work you have or are working on. It also, because it's an academic assignment, doesn't have to be practical. If you have this crazy game idea and you want to outline it in the mini GDD, go ahead. A massively multiplayer role-playing game where everyone plays as a pastry chef, and the entire world revolves around making the world's greatest pastries. You'd never find a company willing to invest in that. It would be perfectly appropriate to explore what that could be like for this assignment. let me know what follow-up questions you have based on that.
No, that was great. I really appreciate you going to. My internet connection is a little slow, so I missed a little bit of it. But yes, I like that. It's got me excited about the assignment now.
Good. I tried to structure these assignments to meet academic goals while also offering the potential for fun in them. I say potential because when you try and force people to have fun, they don't have fun. But if you want to have fun with these assignments, there are generally opportunities for it. I want them to be that way. Chris, you were starting to speak earlier.
I was thinking about the twine assignment. When I was branching, I was trying to bring them back. So I would do something like this. I would say she was invited to 2 parties, and she goes to one. If she goes to one, she'll watch her father receive an award. And if she goes to the other, she'll meet some Hollywood stars. So she has to choose one. But when she chooses the one with her father receiving the award, her father has a heart attack on stage. And when she's at the Hollywood one, she gets told by her best friend or her assistant, who whispers in her ear, that her father had a heart attack at the other party.
That's good.
Can you do it that way, or is it supposed to have 2 completely different scenarios as the consequence?
Okay, what you have there is what's called convergence, is bringing it back together again. You have to find ways to bring it back together again, or you'll just wind up branching and branching and branching until the whole project becomes unmanageable.
Okay, so that was okay?
Totally, absolutely.
Okay.
Assignment 3, which is going to be next week, you're not even worrying about this yet, but is going to be branching dialogue, where it's all about one conversation as opposed to branching opportunities and plot. So for assignment 3, you might have that conversation with the friend, where it all ends with, I just heard some news, your dad had a heart attack. That's not the best example because I have a hard time seeing that conversation going anywhere but straight to, oh, by the way, your dad's in the hospital or just died, or we're not sure. But for branching narrative, that's the principle. There are a number of different ways you could have handled that scene. But actually what you have there is a very strong way of handling it. Let me give you a couple of examples to show other ways to approach that, again, without the branching getting out of control. You could have written it such that she chooses to go to either party, but if she tries to go to the Hollywood, the party where some Hollywood, starlets and figures might be there, it turns out that there's already there are police cars. There's already been an incident at the party, and she's pulling up. So she's like, "Oh, I'm not stopping here," and drives on to her dad's party. That would be okay. But what you described is a much stronger way to converge those two, because players tend to pick up when their options are prematurely foreclosed. Like, you can go to any of 6 shops in this town, and the player walks into shop 1. I'm out of stock. Shop 2. I'm out of stock. And it's finally get to shop 6. It's like, hi, I have da-da-da-da-da-da for sale. And the player goes, okay. So they wanted there to be 6 shops. They didn't want to actually, give me 6 shops worth of different stuff to choose from. So it's just the one shop. What you did allows the player to go to either party. But what's going on in the world, something that feels much more natural, is that regardless of which party she goes to, her dad's going to have that heart attack. And she's going to find out about it. How she finds out. The player thought they were deciding which party to go to. What they're actually deciding is how the protagonist learns of tragic, of at least traumatic and potentially tragic news. That's good storytelling. I like it.
Thank you.
Oh.
That's awesome. Well, actually, I have one more question.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, so then I have her choose. She has to help a homeless person. Okay, so then I have her choose between a man and a woman. So I was using the hero's journey, and Could I do one storyline about like, I want one to be a love interest, okay, but the other one doesn't have to be. It could just be a friend, but do you consider that a love interest too, in a way?
Okay.
So, like, if she chooses the guy, it's going to be a love interest. If she chooses the woman, she's just going to, it's like her reflection, I guess.
Right. And let me say that my personal perspective on models like the hero's journey is they can be useful, but you shouldn't let them start dictating your story to you.
Okay.
In fact, this is often invisible if you're, as a student studying this, but those models have been changed over time, regardless of whether they have anything to do with universal tropes about human storytelling. The way those specific models, which start with Joseph Campbell, have been presented, and what gets emphasized in them has changed. I mean, none of your course materials makes a big deal about how inevitably in the story there's a woman as temptress, do they? The woman as temptress was part of Campbell's original model.
Right.
And you generally see that now interpreted a bit more broadly as there being a kind of moral threat or a moment of questioning. I forget how it gets described in the book you currently have. But Campbell assumed, and some of his sources assumed, that your hero was going to be a guy, and that the biggest, most tempting thing you could throw in a guy's way was a woman. So obviously he's a straight guy, among other things. And that is about all, other than like the potential for a mother as a barely permissible mentor figure, and the inevitability of a good woman as a love interest. Those were the roles for women in kind of that model as originally conceived. Campbell himself wasn't actually as narrow as that sounds. My point being, learn the rules, learn the models, use them when they're helpful, and if it feels like a model is going to try and force you to do something you don't want to do, then break the rules.
Okay. Thank you.
Welcome. So yeah, I don't know if you caught it, but like Sunken Sea, and this is partially a matter of knowing their own audience, Sunless Sea, allows you early in the game to choose how your captain is referred to, but the game itself tells you that having your captain referred to as captain, as sir, as ma'am, as my lord, as my lady, is not a choice of captain gender. That's up to you, the player. That makes for an incredibly open experience for, among other things, players who might be, say, transgender, or say gay or lesbian, by not forcing the protagonist of the game to fit a certain model and then making assumptions about that later, because then you go out on the town, regardless of what term of reference you've chosen for the captain, you can go looking to meet a lively lad or a lovely lady. It's your call. Presumably anyone who, would never imagine their captain going after anyone who wasn't of the opposite sex just won't do it. But that kind of wide open options is something that's easier to do in games, because you can let the player kind of hold on to a lot of the characterization of the protagonist. When you're writing a book, a novel, a screenplay, a movie, a screenplay or a teleplay, you don't really have that option. In almost any situation, you have to make some of those decisions and decide if you are going to, which path you're going to take. So in a game, you can have you can have her decide to help this homeless guy or homeless woman, and maybe there's a potential for a love interest on only one of those paths, or maybe not. That's your decision to make as the game designer. But if you then take that idea and turn it into a story, you have to decide who it is she helps, at least who she helps first, and if that's going to become a love interest or a reflection character, an ally in the story. That may have been longer-winded than it needed to be. But
no, but it was very helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome. So, anyone else have any questions about anything? Okay. If you come up with something later, feel free to ask me. I'm going to go ahead and stop the broadcast now. I will post a link for the rest of the class. Probably I'll do that in the morning. It's pretty late now. And I'm hoping that my 4-year-old, we have 2 kids. We have a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old baby. Yeah. And hoping they're both doing all right. I haven't heard any screams. Yeah.
It's when they're quiet that you have to watch out for them.
So, I'll see you folks at the GoToTraining, specifically on twine and branching dialogue next week. If you're feeling really good about how your branching dialogue is coming along, then you are not strictly required to be there. But I do more urge people to attend that session, that session, this one, because it helps me make sure that I don't have to give people unpleasant for everyone failing grades on a major assignment. I don't like to do. So anyway, take care. Contact me if you have any further questions, and I'll see you folks next week.
Okay, thanks.
See you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody.